Here at Golden Financial. I'm at goldenfs.org. What we're going to do is take a look at a few different things here. The first thing I want to look at is the debt calculator. We're going to compare multiple debt relief options. So let's just put in here $50,000. So if you have 5 credit cards and each of them have a $10,000 balance, you're just going to round it off to $50,000. That's your total debt. That's what we're looking at, total debt. But only including the unsecured debt. So like credit cards, medical bills, debt collection accounts, if you have a repossession, anything unsecured. Now take the interest rate and just give a guesstimate. So 5 credit cards, if they fluctuate between 10% interest rate and 20% interest rate, which is actually pretty good this day and age. But if you have 10 to 20% interest rate, let's just put 15% is the average interest rate, and then type of monthly payment you can afford. Oh, all right. If you have $50,000 in debt, the 2.5% is about what it would be when paying minimum payments. So we could take 50,000 times 2.5%, that's $1,250. So if you're just paying those minimum payments, you're probably paying around $1,250, but that's too much. You can barely afford it. And by paying minimum payments every month, if the interest rates are between 10 and 20%, you're going to probably be paying on these accounts for anywhere from 5 to 8 years and maybe even longer. So obviously you don't want to only pay minimum payments on high credit card debt. Not to mention your credit utilization ratio is being negatively affected if you have high maxed out credit card debt, and that's going to hurt your credit score. So let's move on. Let's just assume here, hypothetically speaking, you can't afford what you're paying. So we're going to lower it from $1,250, let's do $1,050. So that's going to be $200 less than what you're paying on your own. Calculate. Here we go. So you can see there's 4 different options, okay? The first option is the debt validation. This is the pink option. This entire column here is basically pink. That's debt validation. Then the next one over is debt settlement. You can tell because it's all blue. The next one is the consumer credit counseling. So you can see how these are different colors for each debt relief option. And then the option on the far right is on your own. And this is basically what you're doing right now. If you continue to do what you're doing right now, paying those minimum payments. Okay, let's start on this one. Based on $50,000, it's going to take you 6 years and 1 month to pay off your debt. If it's a 15% interest rate, $50,000 total debt, you're paying about on your own, you're paying about $1,250 per month. But let's just say if on your own you were able to get your creditors to lower that payment a little bit, and they lowered it to $1,050. So now you're paying on your own $1,050 per month. It's going to take you 6 years and 1 month to become debt-free. Now, the next option over is consumer credit counseling. So with consumer credit counseling, you won't be able to get a payment as low as $1,050. There's a certain payment that consumer credit counseling companies need to abide by because they work directly with the credit card companies. So they can only give you a small reduction in what you're paying. The good news is you can take that 15% interest rate and you can knock it down to 8%. With consumer credit counseling, they reduce your interest rate. So you get that rate reduced from 15 to 8%. So now instead of taking 6 years and 1 month to get out of debt, you'll be debt-free in 4 years and 9 months. That's with consumer credit counseling. You pay the consumer credit counseling company, and then they pay your creditors at a reduced interest rate. Next, we have debt settlement. Debt settlement is when you can't afford to keep paying your accounts and you fall behind on your monthly payments. What's your next option? You have bankruptcy. That's always going to be an option, but with bankruptcy, there's a long list of negatives that go on and on. Mainly your credit will be severely negatively impacted. And it can stay impacted for 7 to 10 years with bankruptcy. So what are you going to do to avoid bankruptcy? You're going to use debt settlement or debt validation. Debt settlement on $50,000 in debt, that can be negotiated down by about 60%. So basically on $50,000, you would end up paying back about 40%. So $50,000, you end up only paying about $20,000 to the creditors. But then on top of that $20,000, if you owe $50,000 in debt, most debt settlement companies will charge about 17% on average. So that's $8,500 in fees. That's just what debt settlement companies charge. Okay? We charge a little bit less through the program we offer at Golden Financial Services, but that's about what you're going to pay. So as you can see, your monthly payment could get reduced from the $1,250 that you were paying on your own all the way down to $850. So you're looking at around a $400 reduction in your monthly payment. And you're going to be debt-free in 3 years because you only end up paying about $30,602 in total. That includes fees. The downside with debt settlement is your credit cards are going to go to collection. And once your accounts go to collection, you get late marks on your credit. You get all of that negative, nasty-looking credit history that's going to show up. And it's going to stay on your credit like an ugly tattoo. It's going to stay in your credit for 7 years. So once you settle your debt, you may be able to save 40%, 30 to 40%, but you're going to ruin your credit. So we try to help people avoid debt settlement by using debt validation. Debt validation, all you're going to pay for is the program cost. So based on $50,000, at the very most, you're only going to pay $22,854 in total. That is the total cost with debt validation. If the program and everything goes successful, and it does have a much better success rate than debt settlement in our experience at Golden Financial, but if things go successful with debt validation, you're literally looking at a total cost of $22,854. That's what else is the main thing that this is going to allow you to accomplish is that in many cases the account will actually get removed from a person's credit entirely. Because if it's proven to be invalid, it can no longer legally remain on a person's credit report. Now, keep in mind, with debt validation, we're not paying off your debt. The debt it's getting challenged and disputed, but surprisingly, 9 out of 10 credit card companies, once they sell the account to a debt collection company, the debt collection company can't prove the debt is valid. Either they have missing paperwork, they don't have an appropriate debt collector license to collect in a particular state. Sometimes they won't even have the original agreement that you signed when you first signed up for that credit card. And most of the time, there's approximately 14 federal laws that regulate credit card companies and debt collection companies. So when they receive a debt validation package, often they will quickly respond and just agree not to come after you on the debt. You're going to get a letter, and that letter is what's called a defensible record proving the debt to be invalid. At that point, it becomes legally uncollectible, and a legally uncollectible debt is one that you don't have to pay. There are some drawbacks with debt settlement and debt validation, but in general, debt validation, like I had said, we see less issues with debt validation than with debt settlement. So it seems to be a much better option. And as far as our personal success rate, we see a much higher success rate with debt validation. So it's definitely what you want to first start with. If you need a debt relief program, start with debt validation. If your debt is proven to be valid, then you can settle it. But don't resort to settling it and just accepting the fact that this debt is going to stay on my credit. I'm going to have the late marks. I'm going to have the collection marks. Everything's going to basically be destroying my credit score for the next 7 years. Don't just accept that from the get-go. You can figure all this out real easy at Golden Financial. Just give us a call here at 866-376-9846.